The Whitaker family reunion brunch was already in full swing. Sunlight flashed off polished cutlery and half-empty mimosa glasses as my relatives took turns bragging about promotions, home renovations, and Ivy League acceptances. I sat at the far end of the long farmhouse table on my grandmother's vineyard in Napa, quietly sipping my coffee. Isabelle, as always, held the room. "I'm on track to become the youngest executive director in the firm's history," she said, brushing her sleek blonde hair over one shoulder. The partners were blown away by my numbers last quarter. Soft applause followed. My mother beamed. "That's our Isabelle. Yale and Deote. What a combination." I smiled faintly. That morning, I'd received a very different kind of message, confirming that Stratus Dynamics, the company I founded 4 years ago, had just been valued at $4.2 billion. The same email said Forbes wanted me for their next cover. "And what about you, Leah?" Aunt Denise asked, her voice light with amusement. "Still working on that little app thing?" "I'm a software architect," I replied calmly. "And yes, I am." To them, I was still the quirky cousin who had turned down a corporate job in San Francisco to write code in a shared workspace. Isabelle lifted her glass. "That's cute. Tech is fun. But it's not exactly managing billion-dollar portfolios." She had no idea her firm was already using a machine learning system licensed for my company. I stayed quiet. My uncle leaned back in his chair. "Leah, don't you think it's time to get serious? You're not 22 anymore." I thought about the acquisition offers waiting in my inbox from Apple, Nvidia, and Amazon. "I'm doing just fine," I said. Isabelle snorted. "Sure you are. Renting in Oakland. Driving that old Prius. Meanwhile, I just closed on a loft in Tribeca. Your parents co-signed the mortgage." The table went still. "At least I've built something worth their investment," she added sharply. "What have you built?" My mother leaned in quickly. "Girls, come on. Leah, sweetheart, there's no shame in starting over. Maybe something a little more stable." I set my cup down. "No need. Forbes is calling next week for a cover interview. They're featuring me in their Tech Billionaires issue." For the first time all morning, no one spoke. Uncle Richard cleared his throat. "Well, your cousin could probably get you an entry-level position at her firm." Isabelle smiled too widely. "Billing. Maybe data entry. You're good with computers after all." A ripple of laughter went around the table. Even my father chuckled. "I'm happy where I am," I said quietly, folding my napkin. "Happy being a nobody?" Isabelle shot back. "Face it, Leah. Some of us are built for success. And some of us just need to accept our limitations." My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another message from Forbes. "Final details for tomorrow's announcement. 30 under 30. Meet Leah Whitaker, the youngest self-made billionaire in tech." "I should go," I said, standing. "Early meeting?" Aunt Denise asked with a mocking smile. "In that shabby little office you rent." What they called a shabby co-working space in Oakland was only a decoy. The real headquarters of Stratus Dynamics occupied 3 private floors in San Francisco's Transbay Tower. But no one at that table had ever cared enough to find out. "You can't leave yet," my mother said quickly. "Isabelle hasn't even told everyone about her new summer house in the Hamptons." "I bought it with my latest bonus," Isabelle added proudly. "Though I suppose that kind of success is hard to understand when you're still playing around with a little startup." I paused at the doorway, one hand resting on the antique frame. "You know what's funny?" I said, turning back. "In all these years, not one of you has ever asked what my company actually does." Isabelle shrugged. "Why bother? It's not like you're changing the world." If only she knew. Stratus already powered supply chains for nearly half the Fortune 500. Our AI quietly optimized energy grids across 3 states, saving billions. We had transformed smart logistics, and we're now building neuromorphic chips that could reshape global computing. But sure, data entry. "Maybe you're right," I said, reaching for my bag, a bespoke Italian leather piece that cost more than her Hamptons mortgage. "Maybe some of us are just built different." Isabelle smirked, lifting her 3rd glass of wine. "So, you're finally admitting I'm better?" "No," I said, thinking about tomorrow's headlines and the photo shoot scheduled later that week. Just admitting we measure success differently. She blinked. What's that supposed to mean? I paused. Oh, and Isabelle? Yes, she said coolly. You might want to check tomorrow's Forbes. She scoffed.
What?
Another article about successful women in finance. Something like that. I stepped outside into the crisp Napa Valley evening, their laughter fading behind me. My phone buzzed as I reached the gravel driveway. Not the old Prius I used for family events, but my real car, tucked around the corner. A matte black Lucid Air Sapphire. I slid into the driver's seat as the dashboard lit softly. One new message. Cover confirmed. Live link goes out at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Congratulations again, Leah. I smiled, started the engine, and pulled away from the vineyard. From the noise. From the doubts. Tomorrow the world would know. And so would they. A matte black Lucid Air Sapphire waited at the edge of the driveway. I slid inside, the interior glowing softly beneath the dashboard lights. One new message. Cover confirmed. Live link goes out at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Congratulations again, Leah. I smiled, started the engine, and pulled away, leaving behind the vineyard, the noise, and the doubts. Tomorrow, the world would know. And so would they. I know, I said calmly into my phone. I personally rejected your first 3 acquisition offers. The price was too low. There was a sharp crash on the other end. Glass, maybe. Isabelle's voice rose in panic. You're our vendor. I've been bragging about our trading performance using your tech. I leaned back in my chair, sleek, ergonomic, tucked into the corner office of Stratus Dynamics' San Francisco headquarters. Ironic, isn't it? I said lightly. All those times you offered me an entry-level job, you were offering one to your own software provider. Another call beeped in. Mom and Dad.
Hold on, Isabelle.
I switched lines. Leah Lee Whitaker. My mother snapped. What is the meaning of this? Of what? I asked evenly. The article. The valuation. Why didn't you tell us? Tell you that I was successful? I replied. You never asked. You were too busy celebrating Isabelle's bonus and her Hamptons house to notice what I was building. But $5 billion, my father broke in. That's more than our entire extended family combined. Yes, I said quietly. Quite a bit more, actually. I opened my investment dashboard. Oh, and Dad? Those safe stocks you always talk about. What about them? I own controlling stakes in most of those companies now. A sharp inhale. Leah, we never meant to dismiss you. You mocked my choices, I said gently. You told me I'd fail unless I followed your path. The line went silent. Then I added, softly, you know what's funny? If either of you had Googled Stratus Dynamics even once in the past 5 years, you would have known all of this. The line beeped again. Isabelle was back. This isn't fair, she snapped. I did everything right. Harvard. Finance. Partner track. And I did everything my way. I interrupted. I built something from nothing. I created value. I led. I paused. Speaking of value, Stratus is reviewing all vendor contracts next week. That includes your firm. You wouldn't dare, she shouted. Why not? I said calmly. Isn't that how real business works? That's what you've been lecturing me about for years, remember? A soft knock at my door. My assistant peeked in. Ms. Whitaker, the studio is ready. You go live in 20 minutes. Thank you, Julia. I turned back to the phone. I have to go. Leah, my mother said quickly. About that apartment you rent. Oh, right, I said with a small laugh. I actually own the building. All 30 floors. I ended the call. In front of me, a wall of screens came alive. Real-time operations from Zurich, Seoul, and Toronto. My phone lit up again. Isabelle, we need to talk about the contract.
Mom, please. Dinner this week.
Just us. I exhaled slowly. Success hadn't changed me. It had simply made it impossible to ignore me. Julia appeared again, slightly flustered. Ms. Whitaker, your cousin just arrived downstairs. She's demanding to see you. I tapped my tablet and pulled up the security feed. Isabelle stood in the lobby, power suit pressed, heels trembling, clutching the magazine like a lifeline. You can book through official channels, I said evenly. Like any other vendor. And your parents are on their way up, Julia added quietly. I smiled. Let security know I'm unavailable. I stood. I have a company to run. As I stepped into the studio, the lights warmed my face. The anchor smiled. Ms. Whitaker, you've built one of the most influential AI companies in the world, yet stayed completely under the radar. How did no one see this coming? I tilted my head, thoughtful. Some people only see what they expect to see, I said. They measure success in job titles and square footage. But innovation doesn't always wear a designer suit or sit at the loudest end of the table. And now, the anchor asked, now that the world is watching? A faint smile touched my lips. Now they'll watch someone they once dismissed help shape the future. Because this wasn't the finish line. It was the starting gun. My phone buzzed, once more on the desk. Isabelle, please. I need this contract. My bonus depends on it. I turned the phone face down. The cameras glowed red. We were live. And I finally understood something simple and unshakable. I never built Stratus Dynamics to prove anyone wrong. I built it because I believed in what I was creating, long before anyone else did. And that belief had been enough.